Okay, so this is a word in context question. The work of Kiowa painter T.C. Cannon derives its power in part from the tension among his blank influences. I would suggest my first guess or hunch is different influences. But let's see. Colon. Love these colons. They help explain exactly what we're looking for. The classic European portraiture with its realistic treatment of faces. Semicolon, that's another item in the list. So remember, a minor use of semicolon is the super comma. So this is going to be a list. The American pop art movement with its vivid colors. And third in the list, and flat style, the intertribal painting style that rejects the effect of depth typically achieved through shading and perspective. These are all three different influences. I think this is not a bad guess. Okay? So A, contemporary or complementary. So do these influences complement each other? In part from the tension among his complementary influences. Well, if there's tension between them, do they really complement each other? Maybe. Maybe. That could be. Let's keep going. Unknown influences is unknown. No, they're just not. That's not the idea. His disparate. Disparate means different. His disparate influences. That's going to be it. There's a tension from his disparate influences. So they're different things, thus there's tension. If there's tension, they're probably not complementary. A is probably not correct. Interchangeable. Well, interchangeable means we can swap them back and forth. That's not really the idea, that we can swap one for the other. They're just different influences with tension between them because they're disparate. See? Okay, another word in context problem. New and interesting research conducted by Suleiman Al-Sweden and Muat Al-Hajj is inspired by their observation that though there have been many studies of the effect of high altitude on blood chemistry, okay, there have been many studies, but these guys have new and interesting research. There is a blank studies of the effect on blood chemistry of living in locations below sea level, such as the California towns of Salton. So, though we have a contrasting transition, so though there are many studies of high altitude, there is a paucity or few studies of the effect on blood chemistry below sea level. They're in contrast. If one end is high altitude, the other is below sea level. So there's few or little studies of the effect on blood chemistry at sea level. So I think that's the right idea here with the contrast set up in the text. Quarrel. Well, no, quarrel means there's an argument. There's not necessarily an argument, right? Paucity of. Wow, I'm surprised that word matches. Maybe I subconsciously saw it because I did not see that answer. But that's right. Paucity means a lack thereof, which is the opposite of the many studies at high altitudes. Profusion of, well, guess what? Even if you don't know what that means, paucity is a very good answer. That's not going to be right. By the way, profuse means it's common, it's abundant, right? So profusion of probably means something like abundance, and that's not going to be the right idea, right? Verisimilitude, okay, another word you might not know. So veri is true and similitude is similar, right? So actually alike, the like in truth somehow. No, that's not the idea. The idea is there are many studies at high altitude, there are few studies at low altitude. B is going to be correct. This might be a little difficult because if you have 2 or 3 words you don't understand, then it gets to be tough going. So hopefully you can sort of piece out what one of these or 2 of these mean. Okay, word in context. Close analysis of the painting Girl with a Flute, long attributed to the 17th century Dutch painter Johannes Vermeer, has revealed subtle deviations from the artist's signature techniques. Okay, so there seems to be possibly a question whether this is a real Vermeer. I haven't said that yet, but I kind of see that coming up. So, because missing certain signature techniques. These variations suggest that the work may be that of a student of Vermeer's tutelage. See, it's a question of whether he painted it or not. Potentially blank our understanding of Vermeer as a solitary artist. Potentially breaking our understanding, shattering our understanding of Vermeer as a solitary artist. Yeah, maybe I'm going to put like shattering, right? Something like that. Calling into question our understanding of Vermeer as a solitary artist. So, potentially negating our understanding of Vermeer? Maybe. I mean, that's shattering, negating. Prefiguring our understanding of Vermeer? Prefiguring. That is to figure ahead of time. So, is that the right idea? Variation secularists may be a student, potentially prefiguring our understanding. I don't think that's right. That doesn't look appropriate. Entrenching our understanding of Vermeer as a solitary artist. Well, okay, that's interesting. Entrenching would be reinforcing. So if it was a student, does that reinforce our understanding of Vermeer as a solitary artist? Maybe, maybe not. I don't think so, because the signature techniques might have been the student and the other work his, which means he's not solitary. I think that's the idea here. So I don't think entrenching's right. I think that's the opposite. Substantiating our understanding of Vermeer as a solitary artist. Well, that could be substantiating our understanding. So potentially negating our understanding of Vermeer as a solitary artist. So these variations suggest the work may be that of a student, potentially negating our understanding of Vermeer, or substantiating our understanding of Vermeer as a solitary artist. Is it substantiating? That means to kind of prove or at least provide evidence in support of. I don't think this is substantiating. I think the idea here is because entrenching and substantiating are similar as well. I think the idea is the opposite of that. It's negating the idea that he's a solitary artist. Apparently he worked on a painting with a student together. So I'm going to say negating is the right idea in context here. Okay, 14, another word in context, but we want to know specifically what the word endure most nearly means. So let's take a look. The following text is adapted from Oscar Wilde's 1895 play, The Importance of Being Earnest. Cecily, have we got to part? Algernon, I'm afraid so. It's a very painful parting. Cecily, it is always painful to part from people whom one has known for a very brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity. So what's the idea here? If you're an old friend, you can endure, you can put up with it, right? You can survive it, right? But if it's a brief friend, then it's hard to give up, right? So, but even in a momentary separation from anyone to whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable. So a short relationship is hard to separate from. Endure means to regret. One can regret with equanimity. No, you don't regret with equanimity. Endure is more to put up with. To persist. Persist is to continue. So one can persist with equanimity. Are they persisting? That's not terrible, but I don't think that's quite the right idea. It's not being persistent. You're enduring, you're tolerating. Tolerating is more like put up with. Okay? It's kind of casual, colloquial to say put up with, but that's kind of the idea. You tolerate. Because it's so bad, the short separation. Encourage is the wrong idea. You don't want to encourage the separation. C is the correct answer. Okay, Again, a wording context problem, precise words. It is by no means blank to recognize the influence of Dutch painter Bosch and blah blah's paintings. It is by no means blank to recognize. Easy to recognize would be my guess, or something like that. I don't know. Let's see. We've got a semicolon, so we've got a related sentence or idea to follow. Indeed, emphasizing, Bonastir himself cites Bosch as an inspiration. So it's by no means blank to recognize the influence of Dutch painter Bosch on this other guy's paintings. Indeed, he himself says Bosch is an inspiration. It's by no means blank to recognize. Inspiration. I don't think that's really going to be easy. However, let's just read the last part. However, some scholars have suggested that the ancient Mesopotamian poem, Epic of Gilgamesh, may have had a far greater impact on Bonastir's work. So, that's interesting. We're contrasting. So there's a strong influence, right? It's by no means easy or obvious. That might be the idea. To recognize the influence of Bosch on Bonastir's work. Indeed, Bosch says he was an inspiration. However, some scholars suggest Bonastir's work reflects more of a different poet or artists. So let's look at the answer choices. Is by no means substantial to recognize the influence. Substantial means of significance, right? That's not right. Right? Not quite the right context. Of significance is probably even better than substantial. It is by no means satisfying to recognize the influence. Well, I mean, do we really have an idea? He's an inspiration. That doesn't mean he's satisfied. It is by no means unimportant. Well, that would be true. If it's important, it's by no means unimportant. That double negative means it is important. So this definitely could be the answer. Let's check D. Appropriate is by no means appropriate to recognize the influence of Dutch painter. Indeed, he cites himself as an inspiration. It's not about appropriate or not, right? Right? I think it's unimportant. It is by no means unimportant to recognize. So basically, it is not quite the same meaning, but it is important, right? That's what this really means. We could substitute in, it is important to recognize the influence of this guy. However, some scholars suggested this other guy influences this guy, Bonastir's work, even more. So I think that's it, right? C looks to be the correct answer for 15.